What's the haps? I'm Meroka, and once again, it's time for me to overanalyze an internet comment. Take it away, voice of the internet.
No, you just played Capitalism for a game failing? Yeah, the game should be paid for with fucking tax dollars, even though no one is playing it! Fucking capitalists, please!
Okay, I guess you might want some context here. This is a comment from my video discussing the end of Worlds Adrift, which continues to be unusually popular. I offhandedly mentioned that as long as we live in a capitalist society, money would drive the success or failure of, frankly, almost everything. I didn't delve any deeper at the time, but now that particular hornet's nest has been kicked, let's get digging!
Yeah, the game should be paid for with fucking tax dollars, even though no one is playing it!
Yes. This, but unironically? Genuinely, why not? These days, I think we're largely in agreement that video games can be art, yes? It's a newer form of media, and it has taken a bit of acceptance, but if you're telling me the Outer Wilds isn't art, then I will slap you. I will put my hand into the DVD drive, reach through the internet, and I will slap you. Not every game is art? No. Just as not every TV show or movie is art. Where one draws the line between art and simple entertainment is highly subjective, and often very blurry. I personally don't think Fortnite is art, but I'm quite sure some folks disagree. Those folks might not think The Outer Wilds is art, and they would be wrong. But at least some games out there are art. Can we accept this point? If that's something we can agree on, then why can't video games be funded through taxes? Governments already fund arts projects of all kinds. Projects which likely could never see the light of day without some kind of financial backing, and which aren't created with any expectation of making a profit, or even of recouping the initial costs. And yet they're allowed to exist for their own artistic merit. So why could a government-funded arts project not be a video game? That's actually a little bit of a rhetorical question, because government funding for games already does exist, so I guess the idea of taxes paying for games to exist isn't so silly after all. I could just leave that there. Point made, right? You know I won't though, because that's not how I roll. Okay, our poster boy was obviously commenting in the context of an MMO, and that's a whole different kettle of fish compared to the kind of games we usually hold up as art. The artsy indie game we're thinking of is probably hyper-stylized, narrative-heavy, fairly bite-sized, with some kind of deeper meaning, yeah? It's probably not an MMO. MMOs are a big project that need to keep people engaged for long periods of time regularly. They have ongoing costs just to continue to exist, as well as in order to keep making new content to keep players playing in order to continue to exist. If your monochromatic walking simulator exploring themes of mental health doesn't perpetually acquire new players, it probably doesn't matter too much, even more so if the game was fully funded outright to start with. It's not going anywhere, it won't cease to be available to people to experience, but if an MMO, or mostly any online experience, ceases to drive revenue, the typical solution is to axe it, so it stops flushing money down the developer's swanny and they can be allowed to move on to the next thing. Now, nobody gets the experience. It's gone forever. Imagine if a movie was a commercial failure, and as a consequence, any and all copies of it in existence just suddenly and simultaneously stopped working one day. You could never have any cult hits that find success past the box office. There'd be no Blade Runner for starters. No one would have heard of Fight Club. Scott Pilgrim was a box office failure, so you wouldn't be able to watch that anymore either. It's a weird quirk of this one subcategory of this one type of media, and it's all tied to the need for it to make money for it to even exist. Of course, one indirect consequence of this is that games which are primarily an online experience rarely fall quite so neatly into the box labelled as art, as some of their single-player contemporaries do. How many online games would you classify as art, quite clearly and distinctly from simple entertainment? I can think of, like, one?
One art, please.
Glitch. A game far too beautiful for this world to accept it. The Cliff's Notes on that one is that Kita Takahashi, he of Katamari fame, once made a browser-based free-to-play MMO, and it was exactly as magical as you would expect. He also, of course, made precisely zero plans on how to make money out of the game until far, far too late. When eventually pushed for a profitable business plan, they went, we'll sell hats, and tried to sell hats. They completely and entirely failed to make a profitable business selling hats. They shut down the project, and they went on to make Slack. You know, the messaging service your company probably uses that's basically identical to Discord. I guess that's more profitable. Takahashi went on to make Watam, which was certainly a thing. Watam, whatever it may be, allows me to segue into another thing though. It's an excellent example of a strange experiment being carried out before our eyes right now on the Epic Games Store. Epic, in their quest to shatter the digital games distribution monopoly that is Steam, are attempting to entice as many developers exclusively onto their platform as possible, with deals that frankly any business owner would be silly to refuse. Many of these, like I believe the one Watam has, mean that Epic covers the development costs entirely up front in exchange for exclusivity. From the developer's perspective, this allows a tremendous amount of creative freedom, knowing that no matter what you make, no matter how out there the concept, it will have already broken even before the game is even available to purchase must take an incredible amount of stress and anxiety out of a project. If it's successful, hooray! You have more money to work on the next thing, Epic gets their cut of the profits, and everyone wins. If not, you're still financially secure enough to keep going, and Epic has the exclusive baubles to entice new users to buy things through their platform instead, even if it's a bit of a lost leader for them. The irony is not lost on me, however, that all of this is brought about through the market forces of capitalism in the first place. The mind-buggering profits of Fortnite, combined with the backing of Chinese investment juggernaut Tencent, basically allow Epic to simply buy themselves a competitive market share without having to go to the effort of making a genuinely competitive service. It feels like some manifestation of horseshoe theory that this extreme capitalist business approach leads to an almost socialist form of game development. It doesn't matter too much how we got to this situation quite so much, as what it mainly serves to illustrate here is that some of the best, most creative, most interesting work is produced when the profit motive is cut out of the equation. The Outer Wilds is another stellar title, pun definitely intended, to come from this process. Again, the game was offered an exclusivity deal with Epic, and without the need to cater to the mass market and the lowest common denominator, what we got was one of the most captivating titles of the decade. So when we can see right before our eyes precisely what can be created when games don't need to turn a profit to be allowed to exist, I definitely want to see more of it. So then this leads us into a new question. Is there a model out there that allows interesting MMOs to exist without needing to dedicate large parts of its existence to making money? If there was a way to strip the financial element out, we could begin to see some really interesting things appear in the genre. It's time to talk about a phrase that scares conservatives. Universal, basic, income. It's a topic any of my lingering Spiral Knights fans may vaguely recall I touched on years ago in my Spiral Spiel series. Without daring to go back and see what the quality of my commentary was like 5 years ago, I strongly suspect that video was primarily driven by my reading a short story called Mana by Marshall Brain. Now, universal basic income is a contentious issue, and I'll say right now that my knowledge of the intricacies of it is not extensive, so I shan't engage anyone looking to score points in the comments. There are people far better versed on the matter than I who can help educate you on how it could work in practice, if you really care to learn. I do recommend reading Mana though. It's freely available online, and it'll probably only take you an hour or two to read depending on your reading speed. I'll link it in the description below. It's a thought-provoking work of a speculative fiction dealing with society's relationship with technology and ever-increasing automation, envisioning two ultimate paths mankind could choose to follow. It was written in 2003, so some of it feels rather dated. Brain failed to predict, for instance, the ubiquity of smartphones and social media, but other parts feel decidedly prescient 17 years on. At this point, I'll let you pause the video if you want to read it for yourself, because from here on be spoilers. Mana outlines two potential outcomes to automation. One, which strikes a worryingly plausible note in the year of our Lord 2020 based on capitalism, and one slightly more fantastical socialism-based utopian approach. In the near-ish future, mankind begins to develop various forms of automation, which starts to make various human jobs obsolete. Brain envisions this process would begin by eliminating middle management, with more skilled and detailed jobs being replaced by robots later, as technology inevitably developed. This algorithm as boss has perhaps manifested itself in the real world more in the form of the gig economy. You have no person to tell you what to do, but a computer provides you with your instructions, and if you fail to keep up or don't do a good enough job, you'll just cease to find work in the system. Other forms of automation are already here, or at least close and far more obvious. Self-service checkouts allow the boss to make more profit by needing to pay less staff. Warehouse automation is beginning to be introduced, eliminating a lot of formerly labour-intensive roles. Self-driving cars are coming along nicely, which have the real potential to wipe out all of your Uber drivers, your couriers, your truckers, etc. in the nearish future. You're ultimately driving towards a point where there simply aren't enough jobs for everyone, with ensuing mass unemployment and incredible wealth inequality. Brain poses the alternative to this as being to harness universal automation for the benefit of all mankind. But here we're veering off into fantasy land, so I'm not going to explore the ins and outs of that. It's basically 2003's answer to fully automated luxury space communism. The main takeaway is that a realistic fix for this is a universal basic income, or UBI. Am I about to explain what a UBI actually is after all that preamble? Good lord, I think I might be. The premise is that in an ideal society, all people should at a bare minimum have their basic needs met and some minimal level of comfort. A roof over their heads, food, healthcare, etc. The state should therefore provide every person with a regular amount of money, unconditionally, to cover these needs. How do we afford this? Well, there's plenty of wealth to go around, it's just that most of it is in the hands of a small minority who hold disproportionate sway over our lives. An aggressive taxation structure, or even a maximum wage capping incomes above a certain threshold, could work towards achieving this. Again, it's not my aim to get bogged down in the details, so if you're demanding a fully costed report on how it will all work, then I'm very sorry, but I'm not going to give it to you. I'm just trying to open your eyes to what could be achievable in a society where everything we do isn't turned towards making the rich richer at the expense of everyone else. So what is achievable then? Fortunately, we have some real-world case studies to turn to. A common criticism of UBI is that if people get paid to do nothing, then nobody will work. This is demonstrably not true. While UBI provides a basic existence, people generally want something a bit more, so jobs won't go away. In UBI trials, people took the security provided by it to leave exploitative employers and find better jobs, or use it as an opportunity to retrain. We've even seen a mild form of UBI during the current global pandemic, he says, dating the video, when governments gave out stimulus checks or furlough payments. Again, this security gave people opportunities to try things out. People embraced their creative sides, even started their own businesses. When given that security net, relatively few people use it as an excuse to do nothing at all. The overwhelming majority of people, when given financial security, use it to improve their lot in life, or to make something they feel is worthwhile, rather than busting a gut to make someone's stock go up 1/4 cent. And from the employer perspective, if nobody actually needs to work for you because their basic needs are met and they won't starve otherwise, then you damn well better pay people appropriately for their labour and treat them well, because you can't hang the threat of homelessness over their heads to stop them walking away. Okay. What in the name of almighty hell has any of this got to do with video games? I came here for video game discourse, Meroka, and I just got 5 minutes of barely informed leftist economics. Well, remember back to Watam and the Outer Wilds, when weird artsy games were allowed to exist when they otherwise might not because they had a financial safety net. What I'm proposing is that a form of UBI could allow more experimental MMOs and other online experiences to exist, by not chaining them to the need to drive profits in perpetuity. Without the need to drive profits, the experience is better for the consumer too, because now you don't need all of those exploitative mechanics designed to drive addiction for the purposes of opening your wallet. Get out of here, grind, screw you, loot boxes. Bah, we don't need no battle passes. Imagine, if you will, a team of game developers. Perhaps led by your favourite auteur, maybe Kita Takahashi, Lucas Pope, Hideo Kojima. I don't know, feel free to insert your chosen one, that's what she said. They have the freedoms of a bigger team to make something greater in scope than they would alone, but a UBI means none of the financial pressures. Without shareholders demanding better third quarter growth this year, there's no crunch either, because crunch is just another result of our broken societal model that has no need to exist. All the conditions are right for excellent creative work that makes a consumer-friendly product. They can take as long as they need to get it right without that directly correlating with spiralling development costs. And if it makes money, awesome, that's a bonus for the team. But if it doesn't, they also won't end up on the street. It's funding art for art's sake, as well as a system that funds everyone to pursue their own passions for their own sake too. Now imagine, if you will, that our fantasy game developer team is Bossa Studios, and their project is Worlds Adrift. I met the team in London at launch and I saw the passion there. A bunch of them were still working on it while others were cracking open champagne. I fully believe they'd gladly still be working on it if they could be. It would definitely still exist. And you'd still be sailing the skies. Were it not for capitalism.